let's switch over to the boys' side. And Eric, I think last Friday you and I did the Warwick Calico game, and boy were we impressed with what Warwick is doing. They go out last night, they win another good game, and they are on fire. I mean, it's 9 in a row now for Warwick. This is the time you want to be peaking, Eric, and it has everybody kind of feeling pretty positive over in Warwick. And let's take a look at the standings here real quick before we get to your thoughts. But you know, they're pretty much dominating Section 2 at this point, 9-0, which we've seen in years past, not last year, but the years prior. Manheim Central there at 8-2. Effort is trying to hang on. We will get the Manheim-Warwick showdown last game of the regular season. But Eric, this Warwick team seems very unbeatable, and that's great for Coach Christensen and his guys.
Yeah, they are really starting to hit their stride. You know, because after that loss to Manheim Township, which we had right before Christmas, we were thinking, you know, where's this Warwick that we last year? And I just think I don't know if they were confident, which I don't think was the case. I just think it just took them a little bit of time getting out of the gate and really getting chemistry again, because the one thing that Coach Christensen has is the capability of going very deep into his bench. You'll see 4, 5, sometimes 6 guys getting into the ball game off the bench. And sometimes it just takes a little bit of time to figure out, okay, when do I want to put this guy in, this guy in? Of course, foul trouble will dictate that as well. But you could just see it last Friday night. They just came out of the gate. All 5 starting players scored in that first quarter. So obviously Carter Horst is a scorer, and Caleb Johnson is a scorer. But when you get these other guys scoring early, that makes the opposing defenses really put their head on a swivel, thinking, okay, what do we got to do now? Who we got to shut down here? And right now, it's just clicking on all cylinders for the Warriors.
Tim, this Warwick team is a problem for teams right now, and they know it. And that's probably the best thing going for them, is that their confidence is at an all-time high during the season. So what are your thoughts on this? I guess the win streak isn't as important as I'm trying to make it out, but it shows you that they really are heading in the right direction here.
They are, and I also looked at their schedule at the beginning of the season, and boy, they played some tough teams early, and some they won, some they didn't. But I think that has really prepared them to this part of the season right now. And I know, Eric, we were both scratching our heads with that Manheim Township loss. And you just wonder, we always talk about it. You wonder if there are good losses when you look back at the season. And that might have been a good loss for them. It was at home. It was a doubleheader night, a lot of fans there, and they just didn't come up. And you wonder if the kids from the Warwick side was a little overconfident. And, you know, I talk about all the time, head coaches, at least on the high school level, they got to be part-time, obviously X's and O's guys. They also got to be part-time men and women, part-time psychologist with those kids. And I just wonder if Coach Christensen spent some time during that Christmas break and said, look, guys, you are a better team than this. It's time we get back to basics, play fundamental basketball. But you're right. This team also is very deep, Eric. I was at the Ephrata game. I couldn't believe it. I think Coach Christensen played 10, 11 players. And I looked at the overall stat sheet today. I think 17 or 18 players have gotten varsity experience this year. That is just unheard of today, no matter how good you are. It must be a luxury to have such a great bench. And he just brings in, it's like waves of people just keep coming in and coming in. He can take out 2 or 3 people at a time, and they really don't miss a beat. But boy, Caleb Johnson and Carter Horst playing tremendous right now. And I'll just leave you with this, Chad, that you and I are talking. I don't know who can beat Warwick when they hit 3-pointers the way they do. There's just nobody that can match them in the LL League.
No, it'll be tough. You know, earlier in the season, they weren't hitting the threes, if I'm remembering. And now, I think last night they hit 11 of them, Eric, and they made 14 against Manheim Central. That obviously, everything else that they do well, that it just accelerates your scoring possibilities.
Yeah, and prior to the Calico game the night before, 14 for 14 from the foul line. So, I mean, everything was starting to fall into place. Yeah, and I think their confidence from that 3-point line, yeah, obviously is through the roof. But, you know, you've got to be prepared in the event that if it's an off night, you got to make sure that somebody is in there fighting for the rebounds at the same time.
Yeah, and they're a very fundamental team, so you would expect that to get spread around. Eric, you've seen a lot of the boys basketball this year. What are your thoughts on Ephrata or Manheim Central potentially challenging them for the section title, or just heading into leagues and districts, those teams, and how they could potentially fare as the season goes on here?
Well, obviously Warwick's in the driver's seat. They beat Manheim Central the first time, and they beat Ephrata. So Ephrata right now, and the thing is, I look at Ephrata, they've got 11 wins on the season. You would think 12 or 13 wins would get them into a league playoff and or district playoff berth. Right now, they're on the outside looking in on both scenarios. So that's kind of disheartening. So hopefully, the Ephrata Mounds can make a strong push to get into one or the other. But the Manheim Central came up with a big win last night. Aaron Enderline just basically took over late in the ball game, and just goes to show you just how athletic that kid is and what he can do, and a difference maker he can be on the basketball floor.
Yeah, Tim, Enderline's not even first choice basketball player. He kind of probably just does it for fun to keep himself in shape. But he's really been a difference maker for them. I know they lost Grube from last year, and this group of guys over there in Manheim just really seem to have it going. They're the number 3 team in District 3 and 5A.
Well, he's an athlete, and when you've got a good athlete like that can run, that can jump, we saw how high he can jump and go up and get those footballs. It's no different than what he's doing in the basketball court. But the one thing that Manheim Central has, and they've got a lot of football players on that team, or a lot of players that are friends as well, they know what competition is. They know how to gel as a team. They've been stressing on the football field. Coach Hahn, look, guys, it's a team out there. There's 11 guys. There's 22 guys. We're fighting for the same thing. We want to win. Same thing on the basketball court. There's, 5 people you've got to play as a team. So I think more than anything, not to mention that he is a great athlete, I think that competitive edge that he brought over from football is really what's helping him have a great season.
All righty, so boys basketball looking pretty promising. We will have some more clarity next week when we get into kind of seeing what's going on there. Again, we will have Manheim Central Warwick, last game of the regular season for us.